Danielle's world is basically everything that has to do with Danielle. It doesn't necessarily have to be so literal that it is Danielle and the people Danielle know. It's everything from, I would say this is the first time when all my painting series melt together, and they will all be shown together. There will be Danielle and her living room and her domestic elements, some furniture and artifacts and memorabilia that Danielle have, and some other people's work, friends and families, and other people's work that I have in my own flat. And there will be the Queer Archive series. There will be the depicting friends and family. Yeah, everything basically that has a direct connection to me will be there. My first few memories from art was first of all the paintings that were inside my family home, where I grew up together with my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather, all of them artists, and also outside in the garden. Since my grandfather was mainly a sculptor, the garden was also full of sculptures, and it was open for the public to enter our garden and look at them. Other influences for me, except Grandpa, was then Grandma. That was more of a painter. She also assisted my grandfather, but her own practice was then mainly consisting of more or less either abstract or figurative oil painting. And my mother also worked with textile art, or still does. Both of them still do. Still, my family have a huge impact on my work. I recently had an exhibition together with my family. In the show was my mother, me, my grandmother, and also my dead grandfather, and my sister Julia, my younger sister Julia.
Förr trodde jag mycket på skrifter, på skrifternas inbundna ord.
So my work, as it's still presented today, has this connection still. If I would describe my art, what is always the connecting point is the existential vibe. Whatever I depict, if it's the series that focus on the nuclear family album series, or if it's a queer archival series or other series I worked with, what always connects them all is the existential starting point. And it's always about something that has to do with identity, emotions, how it is to be a human, the struggles that you have. And the main overall theme can often be something like memory fragments, identity, upbringing. But in this whole family concept or the archive concept, there is so many subtitles. You can attack multiple topics there at the same time. You can talk about upbringing, childhood, identity, how it is to grow up as a LGBTQ or trans person in a family, alcohol addiction, mental illness, religious structures, for example. There's a never-ending. That's why I never find it so interesting in focusing on something very, very precise. I am looking for general expressions for personal catastrophes. And I think that is a little bit explaining this aspect there. And like we already also talked about memory fragments, that it is after all not one true memory. It is a fragment that tells something. because the painting might be based on a reference photo from a family album that had those and those people with those and those names in it. But the artwork might not necessarily be so much about a portrayal of those and those girls and their cousins. It's about something else, something bigger than just painting that family photo. It's a general expression for a personal catastrophe that can be used as a symbol value. The dark underlying element, while that is always there when I'm depicting something, is very relevant to discuss, I think, because let's say, for example, I grew up, for the context, I grew up in Sweden, Stockholm, in an artistic family. Bergman and such art movies were also always present in my childhood. So this is a very relevant source of inspiration. And my grandfather, for example, he was a hermit and he struggled from extreme social phobia. He stopped going to his exhibitions already in the end of 80s or early 90s. And so there was always a friction. Other topics or thematics that created dark shadows that people might be able to pick up or not in the paintings is also that there was religion in my childhood in a free church environment. And of course, me as a trans woman, even though I didn't know the vocabulary what that is when I was a child. This is usually not the best upbringing for such a person when it's dogmatic in the background. And there was mental illness. My grandfather had mental illness. There was depression in other family members' life. And I think this can be dark topics, of course, it is dark topics, but it can also be a source of inspiration. Because I felt that everyone in our family, for example, always had a very close access, an immediate access to both dark subjects and thematics, but also to discussion and to make art about it, or to have an intellectual, poetic and philosophical starting point to it. So I think we didn't really have this kind of taboo and all this darkness we never talked about, or since everyone was artists, we all used what happened in our lives in the art, and we talked, we read books, we talked and discussed about philosophical matters. So I think in that sense it's not that much of a trauma that it could be if for other people that hold all of these things inside. When I work with this thematic memory or memory fragments, I usually call my series as memory fragments, because it's not a full memory. It never is, because everything is subjective, and it always can only be a fragment of something. And it gets more and more fragmented. For example, maybe me as a person in an early childhood, for example, can be there in the scene, but I might be too young to have an own memory of that particular scene. So then my memory is based on what other people told about that scene, for example. Or I'm depicting a childhood photo from my mother and my aunt's childhood. Then it's also just based on other people's retelling what they told about memory. Yeah, there are happiness in my paintings. But if I think about it, I don't know if there would be a painting that depicts pure happiness. I also don't know what pure happiness would be, actually. But there can be more towards happy or wholesome vibes, or more dark vibes, or somewhere in between in this spectrum. Recently I started to write music, to write songs based on my grandfather's poems.
Genom tro och hopp se hur löven vitnar, träden störtar ingen tröst.
Music plays an important role. I also sing, and I'm a singer except from being a painter. And act, or in general, I don't see so much of a difference between the mediums I'm working with. It all goes into each other. Music is the same like painting to me. And through music, or either if I'm listening to music that or get inspired by music in my painting, or if I'm working with music through a singing performance, combining it with telling stories and singing songs, it's the same kind of urge to express myself. And it's the same kind of thematic that I'm describing through the painting and through the music work. There is a lot of in-between positions in my work, and this can very well be, for example, that I am also a lot of in-between positions. I'm a trans woman, so I'm a woman, but I was born with the birth-given gender male. And so that's because of that position, I have a different outsider perspective to most things in society or reality. And sometimes I can be then a little bit more of an observer and maybe see things from an outside, because one is always an outsider to some extent, as a trans woman, for example. Even an outsider towards their own nuclear family, or society in general, or the society I grew up, the society I live here now. My trans position is very much a starting point when it comes to who I'm portraying or what I'm portraying. It can be more or less subtle, or more or less directly connected, but still, I think it's always there somehow. Especially with the latest series of queer archival footage, which I see as the similar continuation of the family series. I started with the family series and depicting this family theme, family secrets, family fragments, memory fragments. And from there came the urge to portray what I found to be missing. I found people like me missing there. So then came the need to also search for other, so to speak, metaphoric or symbolic family members. And then I started portraying my chosen family, my LGBTQ community and close friends. That is a chosen family. So that would be the same thing, like then depicting me in the corresponding with the family series, depicting me, memories I remember. Huh? And then I went to depicting more historical characters from all sorts of different time periods. And that is then representing the metaphorical or symbolical family, queer family before me, like the ancestors, the predecessors. Because just like the nuclear, actual biological family has these predecessors and ancestors that are a direct connection to our biological existence. Those symbolic queer predecessor characters are also a direct connection to in terms of the rights and their fights and their life stories leading on to us today. My home always plays a very big role to me, and I don't see it as separated from what I'm creating. My home is an ever-changing art installation that serves the purpose of a sort of a cave or shelter from the outside world. My home is always filled with artifacts and memories and artworks that serves as inspiration, comfort, nostalgia, and reassurance. Living in my exhibition might mean that I become art myself, which that idea I like very much. And I think this fits with how I perceive myself and my life and my world, Danielle's world. Because in the end I am an allkunstwerk. I work with music, performance, painting. My home and domestic environment is an art installation, an ever-changing art installation. There is all sorts of creativity business going on in any corner of my existence. And I also feel that I am playing many characters, and I have many different sides to myself, and many different personalities within my own personality. The advice I would give to someone when they would look into Danielle's world and the creations, the artworks, would be probably not to pay too much attention to whatever written material that would be provided there, or whatever information is provided. Just feel, because I feel the most interesting thing when people look at art is people also instinctively make their own connections to it. What do the individual spectators see there? And depending on their subjective angle, I think different people will see different things. And all of those interpretations might be relevant.